Hi folks, and welcome to CNB. I'm Siddharth Vinayak Parthankar. We have got a very special episode lined up for you this week. It is special on two counts. The first is something big that's beginning here with us at NDTV and at CNB. But before I talk about that, the other reason, perhaps a little more significant to each and every one of you as well, this is something that we had promised that we will not let go of. Safety when it comes to Indian roads, safety for Indian passenger vehicles, safer cars for India. You remember a few weeks ago, we brought you the first ever Global NCAP tests that were conducted on Made in India cars. Cars were taken across to Germany, crash tested. We had the results for you exclusively. And a number of you really wrote in with a lot of feedback. And you wanted us to get into more cars, talk about things which are a little more relevant. Well, guess what? We've got round two for you now. There is yet another car that we're crashing. This is also a car made in India. Let's go right back to Germany, to the ADAC center outside Munich for all the details. Yes, we're back at the ADAC center in Landsberg, about an hour outside Munich. We caused quite a storm when we were here last, and this time too we are hoping to further the cause of safer cars for India. And again, this is exclusive to CNB. Today we are here for a special test that involves this car. Yes folks, it is indeed the Maruti Suzuki Swift. When we had joined Global NCAP and IRTE the last time for the Made in India cars crash test, a number of you wrote in asking why the Swift was not included. Well, we listened to your feedback. The other reason to pick the Swift is a more geographic one. Right, now the last time I was here, I remember going on about this one point. All cars used have to be the entry or the base version. Why? Well, so that it's a fair representation of that particular product as far as that car goes to any buyer for that model. Now this time what you're seeing is the ZXi with ABS variant of the Swift. Why? Well, no, we're not trying to change the rules here. The whole idea is that Global NCAP is carrying out this test in conjunction with Latin NCAP. Now Maruti Suzuki exports this car to the Latin American market, places like Chile and Argentina, and so in that market, airbags, ABS, pretty much standard on this model, and so which is why it was crucial to keep some sort of a parity between those two markets and make sure that the test is fair in terms of its representation. So frankly for me, the fact that this car has airbags, has ABS, might actually make things a little bit more interesting in terms of just where the result ends up. That's right. A lack of airbags in itself would have meant the car would fail the crash test, like the Polo and Figo had last time, remember?
This car is sold in India, but also sold in Latin America. So it's a very important, it's a typical example now of a kind of global product. And it's very interesting to see how it performs. This car has double airbags in the front, so that's encouraging, and it'll be interesting to see how it performs.
Now, the Swift in particular is, of course, made in India as well for that market. In India, of course, the dual airbags aren't standard, but you still think that we'll be able to pick up a good sort of overall assessment on the product?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, and because of the double airbags, we expect a better performance. The really interesting thing is to see how the body shell survives the crash, because what we've seen is it's the ingredient of airbags and a solid body shell that delivers the quality result that we want.
6-3. Now, a lot of work goes into preparing the car for the crash test, and we are talking hours a day before and hours again on the day.
Okay. The car suffers a preparation before the day of the crash, which is preparation for safety and preparation for measurements. We put sensors inside the car in the B pillars, the acceleration sensor, accelerometers. We put the rulers outside, all the markings. We find the half of the car exactly, and we mark it, and we remove
this
exactly,
line.
Exactly.
Right.
And we remove all the fluids. Why the fluids? The fluids have a high risk of firing.
Yeah.
So we exchange the fluids for water.
Okay.
Instead of fuel.
So the weight is still maintained and...
Exactly. We keep the weight from the manufacturer. The protocol also says that we need 80% of fuel. So instead of fuel, we use water. It's safer.
The dummies too need their own kind of special prep work, by the way. And in this test, we are seeing the use of 2 adult and 2 child dummies. So as you can see, all the prep work is almost complete. The dummies are inside. A lot of you had questions for me the last time about the kind of dummies used. Now, there are different kinds of dummies in terms of the electronics on board, also in terms of the shape and size. These 2 are adult males, about 73 kilograms, which is taken as an average. Even the seating position, etc., takes their height into account, which is close to 5 feet 11 inches. And yes, putting 2 adult-sized dummies in the front is part of the basic UN mandatory test. But this test goes beyond that, as it's the Latin NCAP protocol test, just like the second one last time, where the car will be crashed at a speed of 64 kilometers per hour. What's the significance of the middle line and then this line as well?
Okay. This line is exactly the center of the car, the middle of the car. Okay? This line shows that this part of the car is 40% of the width.
Yeah.
This is the 40%. We are going to crash in this area.
Yeah.
Okay? This is the first line we draw on the car. And second, we find by calculation the 40%.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just quite easy. When we calculate the 40%, we don't consider the mirrors. So it's just the physical car.
Yeah.
Okay? Another thing from the preparation before the car is here is that we, as I explained, we put all the dummies, the elements for the sensors. We also place the drilling holes in the rear of the car. We remove the extra wheel, remove the pusher, remove the tools, and we put in the back the data logging. And we need to drill special holes for the data logging. All this is done in the preparation. That was done 2 days before.
So the car is perfectly aligned. Now, before they move it back, I wanted to quickly express one particular point to you. Remember, I always showed you this blue block the last time and said this is the other guy, the other car in the so-called accident scenario. Now, I want to talk about this unit to you a little bit because there are 2 parts to it, the red bit and the blue. And you might think that, you know, it's all just one big hunk of metal, but there is a difference. The red represents what's the big structure of the car. So when you actually have a collision, remember there's little softer bits up front before you reach things like the engine or the actual structure, the big impact bearing parts of the car. The blue bit is that soft portion in the front, and this is what it looks like really. It's made out of aluminum, so it's really light, and it's a honeycomb sort of a pattern. So it's not just a big block of metal, it's got this porous sort of a feel to it to try and imitate or try and emulate what a regular car's soft bits would seem like. And so which is why it's crucial to have both these bits because, well, that's what it would be if you actually hit another car. So the team's almost done with its final checks. It's almost time for the fun to begin, as it were. But before that, the really fun part's going to happen now. As you can see back there, even the gentleman from Suzuki, who has been invited to be a part of this test, is also taking a look at everything, just to make sure that, you know, all of these things that are being done here is, you know, being done with precision and accuracy in mind. Yeah. Now, the fun part. It's this little paint kit, finger paints that have been popped open. You might remember this from the last time, if you remember our story. The crash test dummies actually get wet paint onto them so that you get a chance to really understand what body part touched what part of the car during the accident. And so color coding, of course, is what really helps. Take a look at it. It's just simple finger paints, as I said. And so this one's green. If you look at the chart there, you can see that it goes just below the kneecap when it comes to the leg. And on the face of the dummy, well, it's nice and bright. It goes right here. This part of the test is actually crucial since it tells you instantly what happens in the crash. Of course, when I say instantly, it does not mean that it's accurate or scientific in determining the fate of the potential humans in such an accident. It's just the first impression. So while the guys finish the last bit of preparation on the car inside before we can see the actual crash test on the Swift, I thought I'll come out here and take a look at some of the cars from the last crash. Now, you remember seeing this on the program with me. This is the Alto 800, or what's left of it anyway, and I'm inside the cabin. It's a bit of a miracle how I've been able to actually get inside because the whole structure has pretty much collapsed here. A quick recap, if you can't remember or if you missed our last coverage on all of these tests, let's take a quick look and a run through on the 5 cars that were tested the last time we brought you our crash test special. 5 of India's most popular, best-selling and most exported cars, the Maruti Suzuki Alto 800, the smallest car in India, the Tata Nano, the massive exports and domestic sales driver for Hyundai, the i10, the big hit for Ford in India, the Figo, and the German in the pack, the Volkswagen Polo. And NDTV was the only outside entity involved with the tests. These cars were shipped to Germany in their base variant avatars and crashed last October, not once, but twice, in the UN regulation 56 km per hour test and the Global NCAP test at 64 km per hour. The result was that each and every car failed the test. The lack of airbags as standard was in itself enough to fail them, but in some cases, the structural rigidity was also called into question. All the manufacturers were informed of the crash tests before they were carried out and invited to be a part of them too. Volkswagen sponsored its own second test with a Made in India Polo with airbags, and after passing that second test, it made airbag standard across variants on the Polo in India. We are yet to hear from the others on what course of action they are going to choose to take post these tests. Of all those reactions we got the last time, one of the criticisms, if you will, was about singling out certain manufacturers. This time, once again, we've got Maruti Suzuki that's sort of in the thick of things here. How do you react to that?
Well, of course, Maruti is a major manufacturer and market leader, so it's almost inevitable their success means you want to choose them. Yeah. Of course, I mean, part of this is an issue of resources. We're interested to do more testing based on the very positive experience we had so far. We're looking at trying to test more vehicles because obviously for the Indian consumer they want to know as much as they can about all the choices they face in the market. So it's really a question of time and resources for us, but we will certainly try and test other vehicles, other manufacturers.
Right, so things are ready to go there in Munich, but I can tell you that the big event is that crash. That's what you want to see as well. Stay tuned, we've got a very short break coming up, but we will be back with the actual crash test on that Swift in just a bit. Okay, now that you know everything there is to know, let's get on with the agenda at hand, shall we? Now, the last time we were here, we saw the test with the Nano, and there wasn't a whole lot of damage done to the other car. And as you can see over here, it's taken quite a lot of impact, and yet again, almost goes to signify what happens with most modern cars. It is just this front soft part that has taken most of the impact without much happening at the back. And of course, you've got some of the debris here from the Swift. Interesting how this rear view mirror cover has survived almost unharmed. Well, that plastic part just snapped off with the impact perhaps. But what about the crucial bits? So inside the cabin, and as you can see, the integrity of the cabin has been preserved a lot better than what you saw with the last time around with most of the cars. The airbags deployed just fine, and well, there you go. There's the paint on it, so you know that the face was protected by the airbag. Down here, things are a little bit different because let me get my legs out of the way, and well, there you can see that's pretty much the kind of impact on the knees and on the rest of the leg that you can see here. When it comes to the dummy that's been pulled out, that's pretty much where its feet were, and well, the guy who's behind me certainly is going to have some issues with his knees, but otherwise we're going to have to wait for the official data as it comes in. Remember, that's not something that we can present to you today because all of that takes time. It takes some days before we can actually go through and analyze everything. And then, of course, we will be right back and show you just how the car performs. So today, we're not passing judgment on the car. We're not telling you if it's passed or failed. But do remember that this is the ZXi version with the airbags, and already you can instantly see just what a difference the airbags have made to this car. Literally moments after that crash, you can almost still feel the vibration in the air. Alex, first reaction as the guys here start to look at it officially and almost take a look at the different components and how they've reacted. What's the first impression?
First impression is if we compare to what we have seen in the past with the Indian cars, not so far in time, in lately January, this is literally performing better way than many of them in terms of the structure. We can't give a judge of the results. We don't need to see the dummy data, of course, but if you remember what happened with, for example, the Tata Nano, what happened with the Alto 800, also with the i10, definitely the structure of this car is more, likely to be exactly more stable, I would say. I wouldn't say it's stable, we need to do inspection, but it looks much better than the other ones. If you compare to the Polo, this one it's, I would say, a little bit worse than the Polo we have seen. So that's a very primary reaction towards the structure of the car. That's, I would say.
So at first glance, the car looks to have done quite well. But like I said, data crunching the numbers, analyzing the results and studying them takes some time. And so we promise to have the final outcome for you very soon, right here on CNB, exclusively, of course.